Happy Aloha Friday and welcome to This Is Now. The Army Corps of Engineers says sonar mapping of the Baltimore ship channel will soon be complete.
And that will allow them to begin cutting up and moving out the debris from the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Willie James Inman has more details from Baltimore.
A crane capable of moving 1,000 tons at one time has arrived at the Port of Baltimore to remove the wreckage of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, sitting on top of the cargo ship that struck it.
It's at least going to get cut safely into 4 pieces, and then we'll slowly and deliberately take it off the front of that vessel.
But that's just the first step in cleaning up the debris and reopening the Port of Baltimore ship channel.
Number 1 phase is reopen the shipping channel. Number 2 is remove the ship. And number 3 is to remove the debris from the bridge from the rest of the waterway.
The ship and chunks of the collapsed bridge need to be cleared out to help teams find the bodies of 4 construction workers still missing and presumed dead.
They know that right now, unfortunately, they died, but they want to see the bodies. They really want to see the bodies and bring the bodies home.
The Port of Baltimore is an important part of the U.S. economy, and President Biden has vowed to, quote, move heaven and earth to reopen it. In fact, his administration has set aside $60 million to help in cleanup efforts.
The president called me yesterday and we spoke for a few minutes, and he made it clear this was the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers' #1 priority. And I was to call him directly should we need any additional resources.
When the bridge does get rebuilt, Gustavo Torres with the Latino and immigrant organization CASA says it will likely be immigrants like those who died in the collapse who will do much of the work.
The Baltimore and Washington D.C. area, we have 139,000 immigrants doing this kind of job.
Engineers estimate it will take years to build a new bridge. Willie James Inman, CBS News, Baltimore.
Here at home, Waikiki carjacking suspect Travis Koloa has pleaded not guilty to motor vehicle theft. He's accused of crashing a stolen vehicle last week Sunday, which led to a 6-car pileup near the Kapi'olani Boulevard and Ke'eaumoku Street intersection. He then tried to jump into the window of a passerby's car. Koloa's bail is set at $100,000. He's due back in court in May. New details on an alleged kidnapping and robbery on Hawaii Island. Police allege one of the suspects, Nathan Pedro, beat a victim with a baton, then threw him out of a vehicle near Mamalahoa Highway in Hilo Sunday morning. Investigators say Pedro and 30-year-old Jackie Carter took the 31-year-old Kea'au man against his will from the parking lot of Joanne's Lounge. The victim was reportedly meeting with Carter when Pedro slashed the victim's tires and stole his wallet, phone, and car keys. Carter turned herself in later in Waimea. Pedro was found with over 100 grams of fentanyl, methamphetamine, and cocaine in his car. Both are due back in court next week. Both Maui police and the FBI are investigating human remains found on Molokai. A resident who asked to remain anonymous snapped these photos of FBI agents at the home of 77-year-old Kaunakakai resident Timothy Webb last Friday. The resident also said a woman was seen in handcuffs. Webb was reported missing on February 29th by a concerned acquaintance who hadn't heard from him since December.
Hearing that a body was found buried in a yard, what's concerning is that a body being found buried. So who is involved? Who did it? Do we have someone roaming our community and able to do this kind of stuff and just be amongst us? I don't think that's safe at all.
MPD confirmed human remains were recovered at a Kaunakakai residence on Friday. The remains are still pending a positive identification. They say circumstances are under investigation and more information will be released later. New details in a 3-year-old murder case. New court documents allege a respected youth gang counselor was killed because he was selling drugs that were supplied to him by the man who fatally shot him. Ben Gutierrez has more.
The shocking allegations were made in a court motion from the U.S. Attorney's Office seeking to have homicide suspect Filimone Tavake detained pending trial. A federal indictment alleged that the murder was tied to a methamphetamine distribution ring, a ring that included murder victim Mo Maumalanga. The allegations were contained in a memorandum filed in order to detain murder suspect Filimone Tavake, who was arrested in California Friday. The victim was Mo Maumalanga, gunned down in the carport of his Aiea home 3 years ago. As a former gang member, Maumolonga worked for more than 2 decades counseling at-risk children at the nonprofit Adult Friends for Youth. But court documents indicate Maumolonga didn't give up his life of crime. During the investigation, it was learned that Tavake was providing the victim methamphetamine for the victim to sell. It also says investigators found about 8 pounds of what turned out to be methamphetamine at Maumolonga's residence. And it concludes Tavake murdered the victim after the victim failed to timely pay Tavake for the drugs Tavake had provided him.
When you find a large amount of drugs in the residence, then you know that the individual came to collect on that debt. It was now a drug-related homicide, a hit based on the information.
What the government has done is they're showing the motive for the killing in order to make out some of the crimes, which is that it was involved in drug dealing and that a gun was used.
The court document says investigators went through Maumolonga's cell phone, which had several calls and text messages linked to Tavake. These messages were consistent with drug distribution and included threats to the victim if the victim did not pay money that was owed for narcotics that had been provided. It details one set of texts from Tavake to Maumolonga on March 9, 2021, saying Maumolonga was failing to meet deadlines for payment. The investigation also tracked a white Chevy SUV that may have been seen in surveillance video near the murder scene. It was allegedly rented by an associate of Tavake's and then was returned on March 27th, about 27 minutes after the homicide. It also says Tavake's phone and the vehicle's OnStar system were tracked to the cell phone tower closest to Maumolonga's home at the time of the murder.
The rental car can give you GPS information from when the car may have gone to the scene, when it went back to the airport. There's a time link there.
Investigators also say Tavake flew from Honolulu to San Francisco the day after the homicide. Experts say this information is only coming out now because of the size and scope of the apparent drug operation.
This whole link chart of all that intel, when you add in the phone, when you add in the GPS, when you add in the criminal history and associates, it all paints a huge picture of what this criminal organization is.
It's not uncommon, unfortunately, that oftentimes these are the situations that end up where allegedly the victim was part of the drug dealing and was killed either because they knew too much or because they didn't pay their debt.
Prosecutors have asked the court to detain Tavake and have him sent back here to Hawaii to face trial. Tavake faces life in prison if he's convicted. Ben Gutierrez, Hawaii News Now.
An inmate who escaped from the Kauai Community Correctional Center has died from his injuries he suffered in Friday's hit and run. The state says Matthew Ornelas escaped by scaling the fence with razor wire and was running along Kuhio Highway when he was struck. Meanwhile, police are still looking for the driver who took off.
And now a transition for Red Hill. A new task force has authority at the embattled facility. After completing its mission, Joint Task Force Red Hill has handed off the authority to the Navy Closure Task Force. A ceremony was held yesterday afternoon aboard the USS Missouri.
We recognize the deep ties that bind us to this beautiful land and its people, and I am proud that we are strongly building back the trust that is essential to us moving forward together. Together, we will build a stronger future, one that safeguards national security, our communities, and the beautiful environment of Hawaii.
More than 104 million gallons of fuel was removed from the Red Hill facility, about 6 months ahead of schedule from the original defueling plan. In political news, President Joe Biden held a splashy campaign fundraiser in New York City last night. He shared the stage with former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, and the evening was hosted by The Late Show's Stephen Colbert. Now, former President Donald Trump was not far away, visiting with the family of a police officer killed in the line of duty. Caitlin Huey Burns is covering the campaign.
We got 3 presidents in the building tonight.
Inside Radio City Music Hall, a star-studded fundraiser for President Biden's re-election campaign.
My question to you, sir, can voters trust a presidential candidate who has not won a single Trump International Golf Club trophy?
I told him once before when he came into the Oval, before he got sworn in, I said, I'll give you 3 strokes if you carry your own bag.
The event, headlined by former presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, brought in, according to the campaign, a record $26 million. Cash Biden will need as he trails former President Donald Trump in many general election polls. But as the presidents arrived, so too did protesters in opposition to the administration's handling of the war in Gaza, a major issue with a key voting bloc. Despite President Biden's low approval rating, his campaign has $71 million in the bank, compared to the Trump campaign's nearly $34 million. Trump's legal troubles have been draining resources. A super PAC supporting him has spent $8.5 million on legal fees so far this year, including $5.5 million just last month. Meanwhile, Trump was also in New York to attend the wake of fallen NYPD officer Jonathan Diller, who was fatally shot Monday during a traffic stop, a visit made to send a campaign message.
We have to stop it. We have to get back to law and order. We have to do a lot of things differently because this is not working. This is happening too often.
Trump plans a fundraiser of his own next week, just a couple of days after he's due to post the $175 million bond in a civil fraud case. He'll also be back in New York in just 2 weeks when his criminal trial is set to begin. Caitlin Huey-Burns, CBS News, New York.
The ukulele is one of Hawaii's most iconic instruments, culturally and historically. Watch The Uk, Hawaii's Instrument, and see the efforts being taken to preserve it for the next generation. April 1st at 5:30 on K5.
That was a look at a very special Hawaii News Now documentary, and we're talking now to the creator, producer, editor, videographer of that documentary, Davis Kanoa Pittner.
That's a lot of titles.
Well, you did a lot of work on that. Tell us about this documentary. What is it all about?
Yeah, Dylan, it's been a crazy journey. It's called The Uk, Hawaii's Instrument, and it's been a long journey. Let me take you back a year ago, though, because that's actually when it started. I was here, and I love doing documentaries here, and I saw Billy V come in with an artist with an ukulele, and I thought, how cool would it be if I did kind of like a history project on the ukulele, an instrument that has such an important part to Hawaii's culture. And so I started doing some research on it, and that led me to meeting a collector here, Sean Yakavone, and he's an owner of a ukulele business over here. And so he and I started talking, and he told me about this project that he's working on about recording some of the oldest ukulele here from the 1800s, recording them, and they're going to be saving those recordings with the Hawaii State Archive. So never been done before. Wow. It's been a crazy journey.
Amazing. What has been the hardest part in this journey for you putting all of this together?
I would say just the amount of content that I gathered. It honestly was supposed to be a small little history project, and it turned into so much more. I interviewed around 10 different musicians, interviewed a historian, an ukulele maker here. He taught me how you actually make one. So the hardest part was just the amount of content that I got and how to put it down into 22 and a half minutes into this documentary. And so it's been so much fun. I'm so happy with how it came out. So
yeah,
it's cool.
And that's always a little bit of a bummer when we have so much, but we have time limits, obviously, in documentaries. So some good things, some good parts, maybe sometimes get cut out. But that's the beauty of our website and our web platforms. We'll have all these web extras and fun stuff that you may be posting down the road. I've got to ask you, for the viewers, what is something fascinating that they will learn from watching your documentary?
I would say just how clear the ukulele sounds, because it's kind of remarkable, because you have instruments these days and have a particular sound to it, but Sean has these ukulele from the 1880s or the late 1870s as well, when they first came out. And you would think over time, over a couple hundred years, that these ukulele wouldn't sound that great. But it's the complete opposite. We have these professional musicians play these instruments, and it's remarkable about how clear they sound performing these songs these days. And so it was just such a treat for me to just listen performance after performance, these ukulele, and just how amazing they sound, and how important these instruments are to Hawaii's culture as well. So it's so cool. I hope everyone's able to see it.
Yeah, well, it'll be like listening quite literally to a piece of history.
Exactly.
Our Davis Kano Pittner, we look forward to seeing your documentary, which airs during Merrie Monarch Week right here on Hawaii News Now. And sticking with Merrie Monarch news, a well-known kumuhula and his halau are hoping to pay homage to the people of Lahaina at this year's Merrie Monarch Festival. Our Chelsea Davis has their story.
Of Halau Hula Ka'ulu Okala, their performances at the Merrie Monarch Festival this year are personal.
The mele that we have chosen to do this year at the Merrie Monarch Festival is entitled E Ho'i Kanani I Lihau. It means to return the glory to Lihau Vai Eke Eke I Kalani. It is the mountain range that sits behind Launiupoko Park and extends to Olowalu.
Guerrero says after the devastating and deadly wildfires in Lahaina last August, he felt it was his responsibility as a kumuhula to honor that moku.
My mother's youngest brother was lost in the fire, in the Lahaina fires, so I have a very personal connection to Lahaina with our ohana being there. So I wanted to honor our kupuna and the people of Lahaina. There is no stronger bond in families than from the people that come from Lahaina.
In fact, two of his O'olapa are cousins and natives of West Maui, Pi'ilani Wahine Ka'eo and Jada Lum Lung.
We live in Kahana, right next to Kahana Boat Ramp, and when the fire happened, a lot of my cousins, my grandma's house burned down, so they all kind of ran towards Kahana.
Immediately after the fire, Jada and her ohana turned their backyard into a major supply hub for all of Maui.
Molokai is like straight across the way from our beach, and they were so quick to help. And they were in that day after the fire happened, and we were like unloading boats from the first day for months on.
The song that we're doing for our hula awana is entitled Aia'i Lahaina. It extols all of the beauty of Lahaina, all of the different sacred places of Lahaina, and the original names of the winds and the rains.
For Guerrero and his halau, they dedicate their performances this year to their ohana, their neighbors, their friends, to the people of Lahaina.
I just hope that they remember that even though through this devastation, Lahaina is still there, the land is still there, the people are still striving, we are still here, and we are here to represent our people.
Most of all, they hope to make their community proud. Chelsea Davis, Hawaii News Now.
Dylan, I cannot wait.
Oh, so powerful. It's going to be so moving to see them perform about Lahaina. As we know, our hearts are still there on Maui and with everyone there.
Absolutely. And our live coverage on Hawaii News Now of the Merrie Monarch Festival will begin next week, Wednesday. So please tune in. All right, we're taking a live look outside now with our tower cam over downtown Honolulu out toward Diamond Head. We're going to have your Easter holiday weekend forecast with Guy Hagi after this quick break.
How's it on this Aloha Friday? The weather's looking good going into the Easter weekend. And there's not much in the way of rainfall. Upstream moisture is kind of on the light side. So we will see some showers this morning, mainly for a handful of windward spots. Leeward sides will remain mostly dry. And whatever rain comes in will also be moving out very quickly. Rainfall totals will be limited. We're not expecting a big rainfall buildup. And that's because of the winds blowing so breezy. Whatever rain comes in will also be pushed out pretty quickly. So we've got some showers in the morning. Mainly for windward sides, and then we'll see drier conditions, fewer showers, more sunshine by lunchtime for leeward areas, and those winds will run brisk today and tomorrow at 15 to 25 miles an hour. And that means the surf on the east shores will still be elevated. No significant swells are coming in anytime soon, just some minor background swells for northwest as well as south shores. So it's going to be a little breezy today and tomorrow. There will be some passing showers, but they'll be minimal. We'll see drier conditions just in time for Easter, and a disturbance coming closer will cut into the winds. The winds will remain light for the next several days after that. We will see some windward and Molokai showers starting on Monday, with some isolated afternoon showers from Tuesday on.
Beyonce is out with a new album paying homage to country music and some undersung Black pioneering country musicians. The Texas-born superstar dropped Act 2 Cowboy Carter overnight. It features 27 tracks, including collaborations with Post Malone, Miley Cyrus, Dolly Parton, and a special cover of Parton's classic, Jolene. Queen Bee herself says this ain't a country album, calling it a Beyonce album. Her hit Texas Hold'em, which came out last month, made her the first Black woman ever with a #1 single on the Hot Country Songs chart.
Now to Kauai, where artists are coming together to bring some color and creativity to the Koloa area. 18 artists are working on murals at Koloa School and Public Library, as well as the Koloa Village Shopping Center. It's all part of Spectra Fest, a free event celebrating art, education, and business.
I think it's just brought so much life to our school. And it's look at the kids. They love it. They are so excited. Kids are even saying, I can't wait to come to school tomorrow to see what's going to happen tomorrow. So it has just brought life to our school that wasn't here before.
Along with the murals, the festival is bringing Art and Flea to the Garden Isle, a market featuring small local businesses, workshops, story time with keiki, and live music. If you're interested in checking out the murals or events, head to hawaiinewsnow.com for more information. And in today's Good News Now, there is so much excitement that is coming with the 150th Kentucky Derby. As Noelle Friel reports, a lot of that excitement has to do with some fashion.
With every color, shape, and style imaginable. Every year, the Derby Museum Hat Show kicks off Derby season with a preview of the latest trends you can expect to see at Churchill Downs.
It's all of the colors, the excitement, the vibes that just really kicks off. Okay, we are just weeks away from Derby.
The show features 5 local milliners who get to show off some of their favorite pieces on the runway. After the show, attendees can meet the milliners, try on some of their designs, and start planning their Derby looks.
We have 5 great milliners bringing all of their pieces that they're ready to share with the public for Derby 150. So not only do we have vendor tables where ladies can try on hats, we can help them match to their outfits, but they also get to see a fabulous runway show.
You could see just about every color combination walking down the runway, with some hats making a literal reference to Derby 150 and the iconic symbols associated with the race, like the rose. The 150th Run for the Roses is expected to bring in a combination of traditional styles and new twists on the historic fashion.
When you're talking about Derby 150, anything goes. We could see a lot of flashbacks to Derby's past. We could see a lot of modern trends that maybe we haven't even thought of yet. So really, for Derby 150, I think people are going to go all out.
I am loving that. The headpieces, it's like their Merrie Monarch.
Exactly.
So fun to see all the feathers and the derby hats. And just like, coming up here, we're going to be keeping an eye out on the fashion at Merrie Monarch happening next week.
Can't wait.
Stick with us on air and on social media for all the Merrie Monarch fun. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Happy Easter.